always include that if you like. Next up, we have James Cooper, who is the head of creative at BetaWorks, and he'll be leading a panel on bots for brands and entertainment. So, James.
Thanks, Pat. Joining me, we've got Claudia from SS&K, which is an ad agency, and Clem from Hugging Face, which is a bot company. Should we say it? I feel like you want to just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, my name is Claudia Sukrov. I'm a senior digital strategist at SS&K, and they are a creative strategy agency that has political roots. And we worked with Dexter to build BFF Trump, which is a conversation chatbot on Facebook Messenger that speaks to users using the actual words of Trump. Yeah.
My name is Clement. I'm the co-founder of Hugging Face, like the emoji, as you can see on my t-shirt. We're part of BotCamp, and we're building an AI that is fun to chat with, kind of like a Tamagotchi that you could chat with.
Okay, great. What I want to get into on this panel is a little bit sort of away from the theory, although we'll talk a little bit of tech with Clem, and onto like how real people are going to start interacting with bots, and what that means for brands and services, and how we can sort of inject a little bit more personality into bots. I think we have generally been oversold this idea of what a bot can do, probably starting with Siri. I think the first Apple ads came out and they were, you can talk to Siri about anything, and we all know that that's not true. And then I think the second thing is there's always like something happens in popular culture that people latch onto. So, way back when it was, all digital interfaces were supposed to be like Minority Report. And I've been in like 1,000 advertising agency meetings where it would be like, oh, like Minority Report. And the same has happened with bots with the movie Her. And so, again, I think when a bot first comes out, the normal people, like general people, and we want these things to go big, so they have to cross over, sort of tend to think about, oh, it's going to be like Her, and the reality is it's not going to be like Her, not yet. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about personality. Claudia, dig into the Trump bot. Why you thought that would be a good way to connect with real people?
So we, as I said before, we've got political roots, and we've worked with a couple of politically driven clients this year, particularly around millennials. I'm going to say millennials once because I hate that word so much, but just to clarify, that was our audience. And very, very early on in the research, we were pretty disturbed to find out that these young women that we were speaking to could kind of agree that Trump was like a successful businessman, and that he was trying to build a wall, but they weren't kind of aware of anything else that he had said or didn't believe it. So we were quite disturbed to find that out. And when we dug a little bit deeper into this audience, there were like 3 key things that we knew. We knew that they were going to Facebook for their news and political updates. We also knew that engagement algorithms are really having a massive effect on everybody's beliefs and values, but particularly when it comes to politics. If you like something, you're going to see more of it in your news feed. So if you're politically engaged, that's great, but if you're not going to get that information you're looking for. And we also know they're spending most of their time in messenger apps, so all of these things kind of came together to kind of create an experience that would deliver these proof points in an environment and a language that they understand.
One of the reasons that I really wanted to help the guys out and build the Trump bot was that, I think we talked about it earlier, is the first thing that everybody does when they go to a bot is either try and sleep with it or be rude to it and tell it to fuck off. And I thought that would kind of be quite cool for Trump, because actually that's sort of what we wanted to happen. So talk a little bit about some of the sort of funny interactions that happen, or like any of the sort of surprising incidents where like the sort of personality of Trump sort of made its way into the bot?
Yeah, we definitely anticipated people swearing at this thing, and I know most people that create products, that's like a red flag, but it was a green flag for us. And we tried to anticipate some of the things that people would ask him. It is driven through like a kind of button, choose your own adventure style experience, but a lot of people refuse to interact with it that way. They want to ask him specific questions. But even though they're aware of that experience, it doesn't stop them. I've had people sending him haikus, arguing that they don't believe him. I've had people reach out to me on Twitter, a young girl asking that she has a very important message for Mr. Trump. So there are some people that, not most people, but some people that fail to understand that it's not real, which I also enjoy greatly.
Great. So that brings me on to Clem. Like, talk a little bit about what you're doing and how we're going to make this bridge from sort of dumb bots with no personality to bots with a personality. What are some of the sort of technical limitations that we have right now, and how you think we might solve some of those?
Yeah, I think technology is always put to use, right? So how successful a technology is based on what people are expecting the technology to accomplish. And in our case, we realized that people could come and talk to a bot not to have a precise answer to a precise question, but they can come to have fun and just to have a discussion. And even if the technology is not here today to answer precise questions all the time, 100% of the time, that's not what we're trying to achieve. What we're trying to achieve is to put a smile on every user's face. And if we manage to do that, even by answering not accurately, answering with a different answer that is fun, we are successful and people are coming back. So it's really important to see that people have different expectations for different bots. If they're coming for productivity, to save time, to get an answer to their question, that's what they're expecting. When they're coming to have fun, that's what they want to have.
And what are the types of fun that you think people want to have with bots right now?
Yeah, so we've had more than 100,000 messages exchanged between teenagers and our AIs. I had fun kind of like trying to put an image on that. It's basically a 2,000-page books filled with conversations between teenagers and AIs. It's been quite a good fun to read all of that. First, they want to chit chat. They want to, for us, like the chit chat is like the homepage of our website. That's what they're coming from. They want to talk about their life. They want to talk about current events. They want to talk about their boyfriend, their girlfriend. They really want to communicate more and more with a form of intelligence that is different from a human form of intelligence. You were talking about the movie Her. I think the problem of it was really to make the AI like a real human. But at the end of the day, that's not what will happen. What will happen is that in a couple of years, you'll have a pet, you'll have human friends, and you'll have AI friends. And your AI friends will be totally different than your real friends. For example, a good example, we having a lot of people, because it's teenagers, sending selfies, sending pictures. 50% actually of our users at some point have sent a selfie. And what the AI is doing here is not just answering with a selfie. That's probably what a human friend would do. What it does, it recognizes the image and it processes the image, adding your face in the latest meme or adding a funny filter. And it's typically something that an AI can do that is funnier than a human couldn't do.
Great. So, I mean, we've seen with Poncho especially that engagement goes up the more personality you put into a bot. I think there are simple, Facebook launched a couple of bots last week for, say, Domino's and Tommy Hilfiger. So we're starting to get like simple commerce within bots. So if you have a Domino's profile, you can order your favorite pizza or like the last pizza that you ordered on Facebook Messenger, and you don't have to go out of Messenger. It just all the back end is there. With Tommy Hilfiger, you can go as kind of far as selecting like a bag or a pair of trousers or whatever that you want, and then it kicks you out to a web page where you can do the final transaction. What I think is going to happen is I would sort of call these service bots right now. Like I don't really think they're chat bots. So for example, with Domino's, you can't have a chat with the Domino's bot. You can't have a sort of like, you can't say, well, I changed my mind, I don't want pepperoni, or, you know, what do you think existentially about pineapple and pizza? Do you, Claudia, from a sort of consumer point of view, do you feel like people want to talk to brands and bots, like they want to have a conversation, or they're just like, you know what, give me my pizza and get me out of here?
I think it really does depend on the brand. If they are a hilarious brand, it definitely makes sense. But you know, we created a product that was supposed to be driven through a button style choose your own adventure, and people still wanted to talk to it. So I think there is this kind of maturity that people are consumers and also brands are going to go through with this kind of technology, and people are, it's still early days. People still think that you can mess things up and break them. So I think that's probably going to change over time, but I sort of think of it as like, I never really thought about buying stuff online when that first was like a thing.
Yeah,
and now
totally.
I only want to buy stuff online. I do not want to talk to anybody ever in a store. So I kind of think, you know, with service bots, if you're going there for a very specific thing, probably I don't want to have like a full-on chat with it, but I might try.
So then, I mean, the store thing is interesting because I think we will probably all agree that most store experiences are not great because people probably don't really want to work in that store. You know, they want to be doing something else. That's not their kind of like vocation in life. But do you think that if someone was like a really amazing salesman or salesperson and was just like, you know what, like these are the things that you should buy, or like these sneakers go really well with this, or whatever, like I feel like there is an opportunity for a bot that has a good conversation and learns over time to make a better sales experience than just the sort of get in and get out, and it shouldn't necessarily be like correlated to like, well, it doesn't work in a normal store, so it wouldn't ever work on a bot.
Yeah, I think an interesting thing is that after the Tamagotchi was released, some social researchers coined the term the Tamagotchi effect, which is basically the ability of humans to connect with things that are not humans. So it applies to the Tamagotchi, but I think it applies to millions of other things. It applies to your pets, but it applies to brands too. You're really creating an emotional connection with a brand, and by giving a personality to your bot, your brand bot, that's literally what you're doing is like reinforcing, making this connection between the users, the buyers, the customers, and the brand stronger.
And Claudia, in terms of sort of other clients and other brands that you're working with, I mean, was one of the reasons that you did the Trump thing to sort of do that as an experiment to sort of see how it might work? And are you having these conversations with other companies?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, like the news kind of companies that we work with are very familiar, and like publishers are very familiar with bot technology and already have plans of attack. Other clients are kind of still, again, this is maturity, where they don't really understand outside of just service what it can offer them. And I think part of the larger issue for some brands is that if the product or the service still sucks, the bot is only going to accentuate that. So they really need to deal with that first before they're creating a quick pathway to those issues.
That's what they say, advertising is tax on a bad product, right?
Exactly.
let's talk a little bit about how we think some of these bots might get bigger and kind of really like become mainstream. So for any of you guys that know Xiao Ice is a bot in China, and I think I'm right in saying it's the third most popular celebrity in China. So that's not the third most popular bot, it's the third most popular celebrity. So here it would be like Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, and then Xiao Ice. Clem, talk a little bit about what you think we might need to inject into some of the bots that are out there right now for us to get to a point where it's like millions and millions and millions of people are interacting with this thing every day. You talked about this idea of like you're going to have friends and you're going to have AI friends. Like how do we get to a point where like one of those bots is my best friend and I'm just like caning it for information and talking to it like all the time, like every day, 20 times a day?
Well, I think it's the same for any app, any product, any services you're providing. If you're making it memorable, and if you manage to get to a point where people want to talk about it, it's going to work. I think a good example is that a couple of months everyone was saying that the App Store was dead, and then Pokemon Go comes and kind of like becomes this phenomenon with a technology, by the way, that's been there for a couple of years. I was working at an augmented reality startup 4 years ago, and at that time everyone was like, it's going to be productivity, it's going to be you have to solve problem, and then Pokemon Go comes with like a really funny and really entertaining app that is taking by storm everything. So I really think that by making your boat experience memorable and giving people kind of like ways and reasons to share, you can achieve distribution. So that's why, for example, on Hugging Face, the AI is really taking stances. So if you start to curse at the bot will curse back. And usually the first thing people are doing just after smiling is sharing that with their friends. So I think word of mouth for bots, whatever their channels, will be like the main driver for distribution.
Claudia, from a sort of cultural point of view, I mean, you said you had a lot of teens playing with Trump bot. Do you think we're like ready as a sort of let's talk about just the US market for now, because like some people would argue that Xiao Ice is popular because it's like culturally people are kind of more used to talking to robots in Asia and blah, blah, blah. Do you think we're at a point now where like young people will be like totally happy and comfortable talking with a bot and they just see it as like another thing on their phone, like another Facebook friend?
Yeah, I mean, purely from the fact that like they engage with their friends all the time in this exact same manner. I've certainly seen people not seeing the delineation. They're talking to it like a real person. And I don't see any barrier there.
Cool. Clem, just talk briefly about some of the sort of technical limitations of what we can do right now, and like the steps that a sort of a service bot, as I call them, like Domino's, would have to go to sort of implement some of the more conversational AI stuff. Like what does that path look like? What's the timeline?
Yeah, I'd like to start with like an example, which is Smarter Child. I think Dan talked about it. It was 10 years ago. At one point, it was exchanging 1 billion messages a day with its users. If you think of it, like back then, like technology was really not there. So it always comes to like how you're building, what you're building for. But I think today the technology is already here, as it was 10 years ago, to build a really good conversational bot. Now the question is how pragmatic you are in both using existing technology that are giving you like a good basis and a good layer to handle most of the questions and most of the conversation, and how you mix that with new things like neural networks that are gonna add a lot of depth to your bot and to your AI to make it capable of answering any questions and talking about every subject. So the state of the technology right now is really that we are capable of building bots that work by really mixing really simple and kind of old school technologies with the newest ones.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example with Poncho. We have, we've gone, I think we've been live in the Facebook Messenger ecosystem now for about 3 or 4 months, and we've seen retention just go up and up and up and up to a really, great number right now. I think, off the record, the best retention in Facebook. And I think that's because we've mixed this sort of new technology with traditional writers. So, for us, we have a team of 3 writers that just write new content for the bot all the time. What do you think like a team looks like if I wanted to start a bot from scratch right now? Like, what do you think the team makeup is? And
we're just 2 people right now.
Yeah.
Me and my co-founder Julien, who's back there.
Yeah.
We managed to make it work. As you said, when we'll be growing, it's gonna be finding like a right mix of editors, of technologies, people able to work with the neural networks and making it work like that. Yeah.
Okay, we have 3 minutes left, so if anybody has any questions for these guys, I think now would be a great time to open it up to you guys. No questions at all. You know everything that there is to know about bots. You don't want to ask these guys anything.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, about brands and control. So what this notion of not necessarily being in control of what the service and how the service may respond to your customers. How do you think about that?
So the question was, how are brands going to react to sort of not being in control of their bot? And like my personal take, and Claudia's, see if you agree, is I think the brands that are doing very well on social media right now are going to be the brands that create a good bot. So it's a brand that is very confident in their own personality, knows how they would speak to a consumer, and also doesn't have to go through like 5 layers of approval to put like 1 tweet out. So I can foresee those brands feeling more confident about a bot and potentially allowing like a little bit of AI to kind of creep in there. I imagine at the start, like questions will be canned and sort of like, okay, if question X, this is the response, but over a period of time, hopefully we learn and maybe a bot can kind of start to have some of its own personality.
Definitely. I think the brands that are going to initially struggle, although are really like financial clients, although I know American Express and Bank of America have their own bots, but they have like exactly what you're saying, massive limitations in the way they can talk to customers, the types of information they can disclose. But as long as that initial kind of experience is right and they understand what their audience wants from them, I think they should be fine.
I think I can also talk a little bit about the struggle as a builder, not being in control. It's pretty funny when I'm giving demo, I literally don't know what the AI will answer to the people. And so I'm like as much in the dark as the brand could be. What's funny here is that our solution to that is really launching a lot of experiments and putting everything out there and have really people try extensively. And then we read the logs. But that's kind of like our only way to know if it works or not. We can't plan and can't release a new thing and be like it's gonna work. We basically have no idea. We're just launching it, seeing how users interact with it, and based on that we decide.
Okay, great. I think that's a good way to wrap up. Please join me in thanking Claudia and Clem